We're on board with that. How we doing? We got it? All right. Hey, Jeff, you there?
All right. Yep, doing good. Thank you all for
awesome.
having me on.
Yeah, you bet. So we first tell us about your organization and its mission and your role there.
I appreciate that. Gulf States Renewable Energy has been active in Mississippi and Louisiana and the region for about 10 years. It was set up many years ago by several renewable energy companies that were trying to help create jobs and bring the opportunities of clean energy into the region. There's been a lot of benefit around the country and around the world from this new technology, and we've looked at it from a business point of view and how do we get good policy that supports new jobs. From the association's point of view, we've been in the business of bringing these technologies into each of the regions, each of the states, and even down to the municipalities for both the small scale that you might have on a home or a business, and anything up to the grid scale that is for utilities to invest in to help get costs down for utilities for all ratepayers.
So who would be your members, Jeff?
We've got about 40 members right now. It's anything from a small installer in Mississippi that puts in solar panels on a home or business up to national companies that are looking to put in large-scale projects for some of the utilities. And they're looking to help take some of the best practices learned in other parts of the country and say, what can we do to make things work better? How does Mississippi take advantage of what has been a benefit around the other parts of the country? So it's a lot of it is developers and builders, and you even get to I'm trying to think of some of the other construction groups, but really folks who are looking to implement some of the best policy practices that we've learned around the country.
Okay, but you represent the Gulf states. Which states do those include exactly?
Primarily Mississippi and Louisiana,
okay.
And we've also done work in Alabama. We originally came on with Louisiana, Mississippi, and then we were asked by the national group to work with Alabama, which is still very early in its process of developing the technology.
Okay, and I assume there are peer organizations that are similar to yours that represent other regions of the country?
That's correct. So Every region has its own. Some states have their own. Texas and Florida have their own organizations. There's a national organization, the Solar Energy Industries Association, that represents a lot of federal policy and tries to make sure that it's really going to benefit the citizens.
Okay. So you're aware that we had Public Service Commissioner for the Southern District of Mississippi, Dane Maxwell, on the program on Tuesday, and this was just immediately following, frankly, a public hearing that was held on Tuesday by the Public Service Commission regarding their new net metering rules. What did you think about Dane Maxwell's position there? I think he voted against the new net metering rules. The three Public Service Commissioners voted for them on a vote of 2-1. He was the dissenting vote there. Your thoughts about his comments about it and his reason for opposition?
Everybody's obviously entitled to their opinion. I respect Commissioner Maxwell. I believe there's a lot for the state to benefit from renewable energy. I think there's certainly some concerns that maybe haven't been fully thought out by folks who are opposing some of the changes. You imagine you're trying to implement good policy anywhere in the country, and some folks just need a little bit of time to wrap their head around it. I do think some of the assertions made by Commissioner Maxwell are quite accurate as regards to whether low-income folks will benefit from this and whether costs are going to be shared. When you look at a simplest manner, and you look at the total cost of this program, which is going to be minor compared to something like the Kemper bailout of billions of dollars, there's not such concerns with subsidizing such investments in issues like that, where there is something like a solar program that would actually directly benefit low income and really all Mississippians, right? Anybody in the areas that have what's called an IOU, the investor-owned utilities, Mississippi Power or Entergy, those folks are going to be able to see their bills lowered. Everybody is going to be eligible for this, so it's not something that anybody is left out in a way. And the cost of the program just pales in comparison to larger projects that have really not brought any benefit to the state. So this is something that not only will be able to be small businesses and working class folks in Mississippi benefit from their energy savings, but they're actually going to be able to make a business out of this. The goal of this effort is not just to provide savings to a few, but it's to provide an opportunity for savings to everybody, while also being able to say, look, this is a business you can get into, right? We're in the business of solar businesses, right, and renewable energy businesses. Resiliency is something that I think is taken for granted when we talk about solar energy and clean energy, because those solar systems that get put out there can be tied in with a battery and provide backup power when the grid goes out, which we've had happen more and more with increasing storms. So this is much more than just about adding another cost onto folks. This is about saving money, creating jobs, and adding resilience to our community.
So you said the cost pales in comparison. What is the cost exactly? Is there a dollar amount you can share with us?
The program, I believe, was budgeted to, and don't hold me, don't have the figures right in front of me, but I believe it's $4 million for Mississippi Power and $8 million for Entergy Mississippi. And, when you look at the total cost of those programs, those are really only providing a tiny fraction of the actual system cost for the folks that are investing in it. And it just is to make it a little bit easier. That's going to spur, if you say, I think it's like a $2,000 rebate was proposed for some of these folks. $3,000 for, I believe, the low income, and it was a little different for the standard. But the total cost of the system might be $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000. And in addition to that rebate are some federal incentives that come in and actually pay 30, 40, 50% of that cost. So that's federal money we're leveraging to bring in to the state as well. And you're using you're basically enabling a project that is going to have an economic impact and create some jobs. So this is much more about much more than just a giveaway. This is really leveraging a little bit of ratepayer funds to bring in a lot more federal funds and develop an industry that can create jobs in Mississippi.
So the program, just to clarify that, the program would enable the utility companies to increase their rates in order to cover this cost, spread that $8 million cost for energy, for example, across their customer base. Is that accurate?
It hasn't been clear from the utilities what the rate impact, if any, there would be. When you think about what $8 million is to a utility that runs billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars a year, the impact of an $8 million investment in their community versus, a multi-billion-dollar investment in sort of failed technologies that are not proven. When we're comparing what the benefit is to Mississippians, solar energy is proven. It's been out there for 30 years plus. And so we know exactly what it's going to do compared to some of the other investments.
We got started a little late here, Jeff. We got a break on us right now. Can you hang around through the break and talk some more?
Yes, sir.
We got Jeff Cantin, president of Gulf State's Renewable Energy Industries Association. Stay with us. Middays is in the Element Wealth Studio. SuperTalk, Mississippi. We are visiting with Jeff Cantin, president, Gulf State's Renewable Energy Industries Association. All right, so it's $8 million. I did, in fact, pose this question yesterday to Public Service Commissioner Brent Bailey, who did support the program. He's the Central District. This was just in a private conversation, and he doesn't mind me sharing this. It wasn't anything that was considered confidential, but he did say, in fact, the utility companies could raise rates to offset this cost. Now, I agree. It's $8 million. It's de minimis. It's fractional. It's just a sliver, honestly, of what goes into production of power and how the bills in the metering is calculated. I agree. You wouldn't notice it. I think the bigger issue that I have, Jeff, and this is what I expressed to Brent and to Public Service Commissioner Maxwell as well, is are there limitations? I mean, $8 million doesn't bother me, and if it is something that they think makes sense as a commission, okay. But what if it was $800 million? To what degree are they limited? That's where I have concerns. We have this kind of autonomous regulatory body in the Public Service Commission. It's not kind of, it is. Now, it is to a great extent, it is established by, of course, and dictated by statute. And I don't know what the limitations are. And when I've asked those questions, I don't seem to be able to get an answer on that. And so that tells me maybe we need to do some further review and investigation. I guess the other concern I have is that I hear your statement, and it's well received, is that, hey, this is something that could benefit people, it could create jobs, et cetera. I think it's a question for me philosophically of whether or not a government agency, in this case the Public Service Commission, should try to influence behavior that way. And in this case, your members are benefiting from these subsidies. I mean, you have to admit that. When the government is paying for part of this investment, you pointed out as well, the federal government with this recently passed Inflation Reduction Act, which is really just a big climate bill, and now we've got the state. I mean, so those that are in that business, they are not only benefiting from it, from these credits, from these subsidies, from government assistance to a great extent, they don't exist without it. And so they are tinkering and they're intervening in the market. If this is such a good thing for consumers, why do they need financial aid from government for them to see the logic of making that investment? And I'll shut up and let you talk.
I appreciate that, and it's very interesting observations. I think there's a perception that if you create an incentive for something, then it might not be able to exist without it. And I would point out a lot of other states have had solar incentives and incentives for all kinds of industries and activities over time. And those are created not to necessarily prop up an industry that wouldn't be viable otherwise, but it's to get an industry started in an area. If you look at the way rates are structured in Mississippi and some of just how slow some of the technologies have been to pick up in the state, the commission is tasked with economic development. It is part of their mandate. It is something that they feel obliged to do, and they do have both authority and the responsibility, as far as my understanding, that they have to act on. And if they look at what is in their toolbox and they say, well, what's the most effective way we can do economic development, and they look at how other states are growing their renewable energy businesses and communities, then those tools in their pocket are to ask the utilities to participate in a way that helps create and improve that industry. But it doesn't mean that will necessarily be around forever. Just as all other good incentives are in place and eventually dial back to where that industry is self-supporting. Certainly our members benefit from this, but our members also have other areas that they can go and work. They can go to Texas, they can go to Florida that have stronger existing markets. But a lot of us, I've got family from Laurel. I want to see them benefit from this. I want them to be able to grow their businesses in that area, the job creation in that area, and get the economic benefit from the savings of solar energy. But the commission feels an obligation to act on economic development. They have made a program that I believe is pretty frugal. I mean, there's a lot of other states that would do a lot more for building up an industry than what is proposed here, and there are states that have far more progressive proposals in this. This is a very conservative proposal they put forward, and you look at other states such as Florida, Arkansas, Texas. They've got similar different areas within them have similar programs that are doing what they can to build up their industry, and then they step back and let the industry act on its own. So I think you have to remember subsidies are given to fossil fuel industries all the time, far more than they are for this. This is something that the state is looking to create and enhance a new industry for the benefit of its citizens, and this is what's in the commission's toolbox to participate.
Yeah, so with all due respect, Jeff, what I'm hearing from you is this is a good thing because it's done elsewhere. So even though I disagree with those policies elsewhere as well, and so it's almost like, well, we send over here, so we might as well do it here as well. That's what my take is on that, honestly, and it's not. It's just my opinion, of course, but I don't agree with the subsidies to the fossil fuels industry the way they are as well. And if you really dig underneath the covers on that, it's not quite what the average person thinks it is, in my view. And in this case, you're making the point that we're trying to get a new industry started. And sure, I'm all for economic development. I participate in that as a member of the board of the Madison County Economic Development Authority. I have been for 5 years. I'm all for that. I get it. And I understand how critical and important power and energy infrastructure is to those efforts. There's no doubt about it. It's top of mind. It's just in this case, it's money. It's government money that's going out on a targeted basis to a specific industry. And then what happens is everybody shows up and says, well, you're doing it in that industry. You got to do it over here as well. And the next thing you know, we got $31 trillion in debt. And that's a lot of it. Everybody, I've said this many times on the program, we got 100 senators and 435 members of the House, and they're all in there trying to lobby for their constituents and for their states so they can get the maximum amount of money to send home the bacon. And, then we get $31 trillion in debt. It's okay if it's coming to me, just not to those other people, is kind of the attitude. So it's a philosophical objection, I guess I have to it. And in this case, I still don't understand. Why do we got to pay people to do something that's so good for them? Help me understand that.
I completely agree. We don't need to be increasing and watching budgets balloon. I'm definitely a small budget person myself. I think this program, it is, as you say, it's philosophical. Do you want the state to be able to see a new industry without waiting, in line behind 50 other states? There's a lot of investment money in the country that can go somewhere.
Yeah.
And this is a way to get things kick-started, but I don't think it should be there forever. I think it is something where it's a way to attract new industry, just as you would if you want a new Nissan plant. You say, hey, we'll give you a couple bucks, pick us over Texas, and let's create 1,000 jobs. We have the potential to create hundreds of jobs from this without a lot of work on the part of the government. And if the government, can't step up and help the community better itself in small increments without blowing up that budget, then I definitely feel like that is a tool that is in their tool belt. But
well, let's be clear: $8 million ain't going to blow the budget up. So I don't have any, like I said, I mean, just from a practical perspective, that's a rounding error. At best, it's a rounding petty cash error, honestly. So that's not a big deal. Let's kind of move to a different aspect of this, which is the carve-out of 50% of that going to low-income households, and in accordance with the policy, that's defined as below 250% of the federal poverty level. What's the purpose of that? Why is there a carve-out for low-income households? If we're trying to, in fact, incentivize and create and establish a new industry, why do we care which households participate?
Look, there's a lot of discussion about why support low-income over somebody with a lot more funds. I think, Mississippi is definitely at the lower end. And again, this is not the association trying to set social policy, but I feel that the commissioners in particular felt that, from my understanding, that the low-income side was very important, being that their mandate is economic development, that because Mississippi is a little bit lower on the scale as far as cost of living and
I got you.
standard of living for their lowest income folks.
We got to go. But so it's what, and I know that's what will happen as well. It's my understanding. So what they basically said, those that supported this, well, we got to do a little wealth redistribution while we're trying to get this solar industry going at the same time. That's what it looks like to the average person. It does to me, for sure. So
well, if we have to create jobs, wouldn't it be better to take somebody who's at the lower to the unemployment scale? And
you don't need to give them subsidies for solar panels. We got to go. Appreciate you coming on, Jeff. We'll talk soon. Thanks.